Bojo,
Ani,
welcome to Enweying, Our Sound podcast. This is our podcast about raising children in Anishinaabemowin as second language learners.
I'm Mashkogapakwe, and this is my husband.
Ozawa Kijigoganu.
Here we will be talking about stories, challenges, triumphs, and tips as we share our experiences about our household of 5. Beamed again.
Okay. Pass my waist. Bojo, Machitame, Ozawa, Kijigogano, Mompi.
Mashkogapakwe, Tishnakaz, Mampigre.
Kakwijmin Gego. Windamotion P. Yiminwan Gozian, Anishinaabemowin. P. Kinamagsian. Windamotion Anjayayan. Gajichigayan.
How? Gishpin Nagadawenda Yan Pigamin Wan Gozian Anishinaabemowin. Ngi Makwendan Nibing 2018 gonna batch Jibwa Malge B2 Namegi Jagat Eshkanishnaabem Jik Akina Magas a Jik Minwa Ozawa Minwa Musquanquit Gija Gianandaneta Gija wat Ode in MKH Bekang Nish Ingurwasum Gijgat Nigijgat Ozawa Minwanin Ingi Bizome Ingi Papa Bizome Ode Gnebek Gitaganing Ziebing Schkoneganing Beisho Nimki Ashbekong Gawin and Gi Kenda Zime the Pish 8 take Nano the Baganagek Ngi Pizome Midashagik P and Gi Wab Mong Musquanquit Pizad Giwab Monkit Musquanquit Gig P and Gi Bit the Goshmeode Onin Giu Kinamagas a Jikish Kinishnabem Jik Gi Bijawok Nano Gishagat Ingi Mud de Beme Ingi Queshquata de Me or de Beisho Skoding Awegi Bodway Gishep Nano and the Baganik and a bunch Gawin and Gi Do Damasi and Donis Ingasha Gijadegea Don Son Midashingi Gabe the Big Nabayan P and Kichikajepingi Gashkozian Ingi Nendan Nano Gijagak Nakshik Kinawea Gita Game Ashkodeng Nish Tanasha Basic Quaidwinan Minaguyak going away as gi jagnashi mosi ode. Ingi nendam ingi gip kanage ingi kita mishkuns mitigamen mino mishkuns ingi mikwendan ashwigo ingi apachiko min wanakosian kinawaya gi bape kinawaya sustame git aya ode gonna batch marriage and kazo awaya gi mamad is what ode gi tage what gae apachiko ingi minwen dakos Anishinaabemowin ode minwangi minwendan ingoding naniji kwe zoants jinkaza mage nijo de kwe kinawaya gi jinakazo ying going to kensin Winawa to Ninue. They all call us. Ingi Musha Jabwa COVID. Ingi Jao de Makadayabo Dawe Gamagong or Shangeo Gamagong. Londoning Mage Ingi Injabayan. Endayan. Etta Anishinaabem Tadame Ninue Bindik Kinawaya gi Mankan Dendam gi Nagadawenda Dawat Ode Wigganish and the way what Wigganish and Mowin Gigdawat Ginendam Kinawaya Minwa Zoants Nin Gibop Pime Apachiko Minwa at Anishinaabem Tadame Ode Megwa Minakwaying Makadayabo Mage Nibishabo Ode going Ingi Kinamage Kwas Ashwigo Gimatukime Anishinaabemowin Nainijing Gikendan. That counts for Nasop Edaming. Exostamna? Did you guys follow that whole time? I struggled through that. Nongom Nini up Quagemin na Anina Pigi Minwana Gozian P Anishinaabemo Kinamage
Nibana ching gi kino gi minwan gozia Anishinaabem ya P Anishinaabem tariang which kimayak Gooding gonna batch gi debajdan VTAs verb transitive verbs so with it Anishinaabemjik Swakamuk gi debajdan nuj transitive kidwinan gi kweje object to na nuj kidwinan minwa gi object to young you kidwin sa mage she mi edaming to kill somebody gi object to na aje kidang nuj nakea nin bop me. Over the gi the bishko and gi ni sa ni sin nish mage gishpen win de moyen win gishpen win de mod wea Zichigen yo nin nishin nasap in a tagot nishin migo nishin gi chabak pi wea kida yo mi sa iyo and goding ki minwan ko ziya Anishinaabemowin.
Bedina gi me kwendan pi the barge mo in wode uging jiboy mo tanta ma gidaki menango de gi tagi me anchtabin gishpin anchtabin gishpin dot ingi tagi me ni minwanin or gi sorry gi minwanin simultaneously and igi nandan igi mau bop get makendan wenje kidian there's probably a word for that, you probably know it, laugh until you cry. Yeah, for sure. Like mimanda jichigaying minwana kuziyang minwe. So that was a time together that I can think of. Like, well, there was many times together, but learning, that was a game that I learned a lot in. Anchtabin, gishpin, so like switch chairs or switch where you're sitting, like switch someone seats with, musical chairs sort of, but not. If you're wearing this item of clothing, or if you have, this color eye or whatever, so it's this question game, and so you got to be able to, think and comprehend quickly and move quickly, and if not, then you're stuck in the middle and you have to speak in front of everybody. And anyways, that was just a funny time. And I can also think of Menadungs, meanwhile Papakwanaji. There's some really good times with that game, right? Especially with Toto Bo Sonic Waduk.
Well, Migonabik and Muskon could have a name for that game. They named it a different game.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Kwecha Debeduan Unique.
Oh, wait.
Giggle. So, should we get into the...
I think it's a perfect segue into what we were going to kind of talk about today, right?
Okay.
Which is like kind of our journey of learning, and those were just some good times that we were talking about, that we had been using the language or been immersed in the language and had learned a lot, or had a lot of fun learned a lot while having a lot of fun. We were trying to use, a good couple minutes in the beginning of the intro of the segment to use the language, since that's what we're here to talk about. And
yeah, so what we'll get into is, I guess what kind of helped us learn the language, and kind of sharing those things, resources or different activities or things that kind of stood out for us to help us learn. So I guess we'll talk, or I'll start with kind of partly my language journey. So mine was started in 2007, and I went to Sioux College, which had a 1 year, it was called Anishinaabemowin Immersion Program. So it was an 8-month program. It wasn't immersion though. But it was just kind of language every day. And I had the teacher that I had there. The teachers were Rose Trudeau and Doris Busno. Really good beginner teachers. They were really patient with all of the students, and the thing that Doris had shared with us was like the basic structure of the language, and kind of that's where I learned about the 7 personal pronouns, and for me that was like a big difference for me. I think that if I didn't learn that right at that time when I first started seriously learning, I probably wouldn't have kept going with the language, because it's too hard to. I had gone to different classes and attended. We had a class in university that I attended before going to Sioux College, and it was just kind of like random phrases and words, which is always good. You always want to build your vocabulary, but I was kind of ready for that next step of learning how to put my own sentences together. So that was kind of my first intro into kind of the grammar, I guess, and that sometimes gets a negative connotation attached to it. But for me, it really helped with my understanding of the language and speaking. So that's what I'll share first, and then you can go ahead and share something that's helped you.
Yeah. So I, like Monty, well, I guess he had way more exposure as a kid, but first real exposure at Georgian College, first year program, Anishinaabemowin language programming program. It was exactly what I needed. It was like a slow introduction. It was a slow introduction to who we are as a people, Anishinaabemowin, and it being Anishinaabe, decolonizing the mind through learning the language. So I actually got a lot of vocabulary there. We did a lot of focus on nouns, which was like super helpful in the beginning, especially since I would say that my language learning journey really began after learning German really well, being able to transfer a lot of those frustrations over to learning that comes with any second language learning. Anytime you're learning another language, those frustrations pop up, and then what was left out of that frustration that wasn't language learning was usually like an emotional part. So in saying that, I came out with a really good kind of base, no grammar at all, didn't know how the language worked when I came out. I didn't understand that there was 4 different breakdowns: VAIs, VTIs, VTAs. Like, I did understand that, but I did not understand how they worked or what it meant, really. Monty invited the whole class at one point, and that's how I first became aware of OOG. And then the second year, I applied for it, and I got in, and that changed my world into what being in Anishinaabemowin immersion was like, especially in another dialect that I did not understand at all. Amazing experience. I pushed through a lot of emotional stuff through that time. Unfortunately, Monty was a good emotional support for me through that time, but it was really what I needed. And then shortly after that, Anishinaabemowin ran their first cohort of students through, and so I was able to join right shortly after OOG, and so I was fresh out thinking 3 weeks in Anishinaabemowin, able to go right into our own dialect, which was, again, a jump. With 3 wonderful teachers or facilitators who brought in like wonderful speakers and elders and had a space for grammar just like Oog did, so that we can address those pieces that we're noticing within the day that isn't kind of clicking for us, or we're not understanding why we can't understand this grammatical piece because yeah, went to Passwayataguk for a year. I don't know. Maybe Monty, did you want to talk about that program?
Sure.
And Ishkanishnaabemjik if you want.
So I'll go back to Walpole Island. Started a program which was a 4-year language program, and it was supposed to be full immersion. It was about 50-50 immersion, and we had our teachers there. They were fluent speakers, but they had kind of little experience with immersion and teaching adults. And the one thing that I was able to get out of it, because I had that base of structure already, I was kind of able to kind of take these other resources that I had, like Marion Corbier's Anishinaabemowin workbooks, and the grammar Anishinaabemowin reference grammar by Rand Valentine, and use these resources to help me understand the speakers and what they were saying, and kind of helped me raise my level of understanding, because sometimes the speakers would just sit there for maybe even for an hour, just speaking in the language, and you kind of had to step your game up in really listening and understanding. And then that program, it didn't, I guess it didn't really push people to speak, like it didn't really force people to be uncomfortable to speak. So in that sense, my level of speaking raised as well, without kind of that pressure of having to be at a certain level. So after that, then when I went to Oog the first year, which was 2015, the summer of 2015, that was my first year of actually being fully immersed, and seeing other young people that were speakers, that were actually like proficient at staying in the language and also communicating with elders.
Where was this?
Oog.
Oh, yes, that was like the first time, yes, for me as well, that I was like, whoa, yeah. Like there are people here that are just talking. Yeah. I was not used to that at all.
Yeah. So, and I remember the first year that I went, I remember there was a breakthrough that had come over me, because one of the things that was my goals, or part of my goals that I set to when I was first started learning the language, was to understand the ceremonies, or understand when elders are speaking in the language. And at Oog, we had an elder kind of give us a teaching. He talked about the creation story and some of the teachings around that, and I could understand pretty much everything what he was saying. And after that, it felt like I was on like walking on a cloud.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't, like, I was just like in disbelief, maybe, like, oh, one of my goals was to be able to understand like an elder giving teachings in the language. So that was a big breakthrough that I had noticed when I had went there. Just a kind of like a culmination of all of the learning that I had done up to that point. Because sometimes we don't know like our progression or where we're at, because there's no like standardized tests or anything to tell us, okay, you're a speaker of 6 out of 10 right now. We're gonna get you to 7 out of 10. There's none of these standardized things that are out there yet to really measure where we are. So that was just one thing that I kind of set for myself, I guess, as a measurement.
So that was the year before I went.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you want to speak about anything after that?
No, you can go ahead.
It was the second year I had come back, though. So I had gone my first year on the year that Monty had gone his second year. And then on Monty's third year was my second time. And so I was returning thinking I had not learned that much more. So when entering, we were doing the normal orientation. You come in, and it's a place that is separate from where we were actually, going to be living, our headquarters and living quarters. And where we would be learning, and wakaiganing, is that what they call it? Wakaiganing, yeah. So in this space, we would get something to eat and sit down and kind of go over, base rules, so expectations, what's that called, housekeeping. And last year, the previous year, when I had stepped out of the car and people had introduced themselves to me, I was like peeing my pants. Like, I was having a heart attack because I couldn't understand people even introducing themselves to me. So when I entered second year, and we sat down, and she began, speaking, and they all began speaking in the language first, explaining the rules. And I couldn't believe that, like, everything that she was being said was like click, 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 click. There was nothing, I wasn't getting stuck anywhere. I wasn't getting, caught on a word and then having to stop. And I was just following along, and I couldn't believe it because the year previous I was getting stuck on the first word. So by the end of it, I was like, I hadn't even sweat yet, and we had already been through protocols, housekeeping, all this. I'm still sitting there with my juice and my sandwich, like, I can't believe, but I can see, a couple other people, experiencing what I was experiencing the previous year, and I was just kind of in shock. So then later on, I go and talk to a couple of the facilitators, and they're saying they're all saying the same thing. They're like, "Oh, Kamino Tachige, is that right? Like, is that how they used to say it over there? Kamino Tachige." Yeah, like, I just kept hearing that. Or Nitachige. And I was just, "Oh, you can understand me?" Yes, like, compared to last year, you are just doing, and I had no idea that I had moved up at all. And, the previous year I was hyperventilating in the parking lot at this point. So, yeah, that was like a big moment for me to be able to just enter the space and not, feel like I needed to grab a paper bag to breathe. Yeah, big monumental moment for me. So that takes us where in time?
So then after that, at this point I was working with my community with language stuff, and we started Anishinaabemowin, which we based off of Oog, so Squanquit rice and Mikanabik, Jessica Shonyas. We had started, them two had gone to Oog the year before me, and I had heard about Oog, and I was hesitant to go because I was like, well, they don't speak the same dialect, and I won't get anything out of it. So then I seen that they went, so then I was like, okay, I guess I'll check it out. So the the next summer, my first year and their second year, um, we kind of one night we kind of talked about we should create something like this in Ontario because there's nothing like it in Ontario. There's no kind of immersion experience that was out there. So we, with the help of Kenjigeo Tech in Chiging, we were able to do the first summer of we called it Anishinaabemowin new speakers or young speakers, and so we did a two-week program, and we had applicants and invited people, and so that was 2016, and then so every summer we run it up until 2019, and then we haven't run it in 2020 and probably not 2021 just because of the pandemic, but
But you guys have done a lot of stuff online already since then, just to be in the community, so for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah. But so the people that have gone to Anishinaabemowin have shared with us that it's really helped them because it's usually their first time too, being fully immersed like all day, and you get used to the language so much that you go back into the regular world, I guess, and you want to speak in the language to them. And people have told us like it's the first time, like after attending a few days, it's like their first time dreaming in the language and stuff like that. So, and I think we found those things helpful as well, being immersed. So that's why we created it. And I know how hard it is to try and put on an immersion anything, like an immersion day or an immersion class, and English tends to creep in because of various reasons. Could be the level of speakers. If they're very beginner, it's really hard to stay in the language because everyone wants to express themselves.
Has anybody seen Ferngully?
I haven't seen Ferngully.
I'm just. That's just, when you said that, it just reminded me of like English creeping in. It always just like.
Yeah.
So I'll show you later.
Okay.
All right. 90s babies movie.
So yeah, what we found works is that if you have learners who are proficient enough to organize and keep everything on task, and keep everything in the language, that things will stay in the language. And I have experience of that. So we had tried to start a adult immersion program in my community, Chippewa the Thames, and we call it Paswe Ataguk, and that was a name that was given to us for our language programming, which we had done before with Betsy Kijigo. And so we tried to start this program, or we did actually do 1 year of the program, but it was meant to be kind of 90% immersion, and it's really difficult in some aspects because of you want a relationship build with your students and your teachers, and so our fluent speakers that we had wouldn't or didn't want to stay in the language because they could see, students struggling to understand, and they kind of felt bad, I guess, and so they would revert into English or have English translations, and then the students also want to express themselves. They want to joke around, they want to be sociable, and so the only way that they know how is their first language, which is English. But then it becomes a snowball effect where
Mm-hmm.
you say one word in English and then it's two words, and then next thing you know, we're having conversations, and then next thing you know, it's a whole hour of just English, talking in English. And I've seen that at other um, events as well, like language events that were supposed to be immersion.
And it's not like you want to be a police, but it's so hard to get yourself back into a space of like motivation to stay in the language once you've already escaped and have like been able to express some of those things that you can't quite express in the language, like humor and whatnot. So it's almost just not even worth the struggle of doing it in the first place, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why that is there. That's the intention, I guess.
Yeah. So, but also, I wanted to kind of talk about when we went to Ook and what we tried to incorporate at Anishinaabemowin is Lucia Bonacci or Weizao Benesik, who was kind of the main person to start Ook. She knew that there was a need for grammar um, teaching, and that's what helped her as well. And so she has, or they have Brandon Fairbanks in Wanagabo. He teaches the grammar portion at Ook, and so that's one part. It's like 45 minutes to an hour a day of English, where you're learning grammar patterns. And it's just kind of, he lays it out really well, and we do that at Anishinaabemowin with Marianne Corbier. She provides the grammar there, and that was one thing that has helped me, and so we knew that we had to incorporate that, and I feel like that needs to be incorporated in all kind of language learning spaces, although we don't always have the resources. Fluent speakers don't necessarily know the grammar or want to teach the grammar. So we have just capacity of where can we find the magic teacher who knows everything, or how can we fill those gaps with this teacher that's an expert in this, or teacher that's expert in this, and putting it all together. And I feel like these are all tools that we pick up and we learn along our journey to help us learn. But I don't know if you wanted to touch on the grammar part a little bit more.
Okay, well, I'm going to go back to learning German. So I went to Trautmannsdorf an der Leitha, which is like a small town outside of Vienna in Austria in Europe. And they speak German in Austria, but it is Austrian German. And so the first 3 months I was there, the expectation was that I would be speaking German and also teaching the children English. And that's why most families hire au pairs is for language learning and culture learning. Most of them want their children to speak English, and so they hire au pairs to be that English influence within the house. And then also the au pair gets the opportunity to travel and learn new language, etc. So within the first 3 months, we noticed that like nothing was moving smoothly because I had a base of German, but it was not going smoothly because I couldn't understand instructions, and so I would misinterpret them and do the instruction wrong, and then we'd have to start over. So it became just me speaking in English a lot. So by month 3 out of 6, I had like learned nothing. And that's when my host mom had suggested, okay, well, like you're this far in, I think that like maybe one, we need to get you some friends, which didn't happen just because of my working and whatnot. And two, let's get you in a grammar class because you have all these little bits and everything, but you don't know how to use any of them. And I was like, okay. So that's what I did is I ended up having to make a bunch of friends just by like walking into a party, a bar, and just saying, hi, be my friend. And so the socialization with those people where I had to be in German, mixed with the fact that I was being sent to these grammar classes, which were intermediate, not beginner. It was all obviously in German because it was in Austria. So people were coming from Romania, Hungary, Italy, Czech Republic, but they're all learning German grammar in German. And I'm having like a breakdown because I'm like, I don't understand all the words. How is it that you guys know all the words that he's saying? And I was like, why are you translating this for me? And he's like, because this is we're in Austria. Like, this isn't an English, like, you just have to learn it. And I was like, oh, it was like kind of a hit me on the head with a hammer kind of, you just have to learn it. Like, there's no magical thing here. This isn't like everyone knows some magical formula. Like, you just have to learn it. And so putting those two together, by 6 months when my parents came to arrive, I was like, like I was just, to anybody could talk, like and my parents were like, who is this person? So transferring that over into Anishinaabemowin, I had so many of these like little parts and whatnot, but I didn't even have enough of the language grammar to understand in Anishinaabemowin how to use these things. So when I was given that half an hour, how long did we have? Like 3 hours, 2 hours and 8?
Yeah.
Yeah, at UG. It gave us that space as adults to take those pieces that, as children, like we would have a context because of, they're so absorbent, but we don't have that context necessarily, or sometimes we get it wrong. So taking all those and being able to ask it and apply it, and then taking that again, taking that new information, and then going back out the next day and trying to apply it. And I know that that's a strength of mine, being able to do that, just like being able to take that information and apply it right away. That's how I learn so quickly, and that's why immersion is so good for me, and that's why I needed that piece of grammar. And so had I not have learned that in Austria, I would have probably been that very defensive person in grammar class because I like everything with me, is very emotional. So, like I said, like knowing those things about me and having learned that first was super helpful. I'm not saying that you need to go and do that by any means, but just for me, it allows me to speak from it from a perspective where I can step back and look at how I can compare second language learning and then what was something that was like very Anishinaabe to me. I can kind of separate the two of them. What else with grammar? And at Anishinaabemowin, Mary Ann's classes, I was really only attending with my daughter. I couldn't commit to being there all class, every class, because I had to put my daughter down and to sleep and whatnot. But what ones I did attend, again, super helpful. She explained something called the hierarchy of maybe pronouns. I'd have to look back at exactly what she called it, but just like in regards to how we address one another grammatically, that took me like 3 years to be able to apply, but I can remember sitting in that class and getting that information. So I remember it really with my heart because I had no idea what was going on that first year, but by 2020, I was finally like, oh, right, I'm like starting to get now what she meant, that, right? Like 2019 maybe. This could be a whole, like 2 episodes in one, but I'm kind of glad we're getting it all in one episode here.
I guess, is there any other resources that come to mind that helps you or that has helped you?
Well, Marianne Corbier's online dictionary is on every device of mine. I make it into an app. I take that web address or whatever, and I just turn it right into an app so I can access it whenever I can.
Yeah, the online dictionary is
Quizlet.
Quizlet.
Your Quizlet, Paso Autogo has a lot of sets in it. But, I've learned that 5 to 10 minutes a day, every day, does way more than trying to do 5 hours on the weekend or something like that. Like, honestly, even when I'm reading books, because I'm a slow reader, I'll just do 2 pages a day, and then I'll be there, right? So, going on Quizlet and just focusing on one VTA or one VAI or, one word set list of, and just doing it over and over on the matching or whatever for 5 to 10 minutes before going to bed has been very helpful for me.
I guess like some of the storybooks that we have or that are out there that are like kind of bilingual recordings of elders. That's what I've found helpful as
Oh,
well. Like just seeing the Anishinaabemowin, trying to figure it out, and then looking at the English side of it, what the translation is, and putting it together like that. That's kind of helped me with my understanding and how sentence structure looks like in different ways.
Barbara Nolan's website is really good too for TPRS, total physical response storytelling. She's really good at no English, but you'll get the idea of the story. Currently in school, in the course of taking the first semester, we were assigned to basically tell the story of what was happening, basically every class, and just by doing that out of the last month and a half, not even, I did not think I could exercise that part of my brain of translating one language while listening to someone speak. So I was telling Monty this, and my parents, that the ability for me to hear two conversations or to listen to two people at once or to read something while I'm listening to something else has increased like exponentially for me, which is crazy because it's only been like not even 6 weeks of just doing this, maybe 5-6 times. I'm not saying you need to go out and do this, but for me, I did not expect to really get anything other than more comprehension and more like listening skills. But I can't believe that like that is a skill in itself that I've gained, and now I notice like I can listen to my daughter and my friend, or my daughter and my teacher, and my daughter and my son at the same time. Like, it's just kind of crazy to me that I've become in tune with the fact that I have this skill.
So I guess I'll use this opportunity as a plug for this book that is coming out that I had edited and translated with help of elders. So it's kind of like another exercise, if you're able to do it, is record an elder speaking and then trying to transcribe it all, like try and write down all of the Anishinaabemowin and then try and translate as much as you can. So part of the reason for this book that's coming out, it's called Bekejanong Debajmoanan, Stories from Where the Waters Divide. So Bekejanong is the name of the community that has a number of speakers in southwestern Ontario, and I was able to record a few of them, and so that's what part of the reason why I did it was for my own learning, to do exactly that, which was listen to a story and try and write everything down, and that helped my comprehension level as well, I think, and again getting like the sentence structure and little things like that. So I'm hoping that it would help other learners in that aspect as well, as because I tried to write I tried to transcribe it almost exactly how they spoke it, just to make sure that kind of all the sounds are in there. So yeah, that's another thing that would be helpful. Or if you know, like, there's a few places that have recordings, like Ojibwe.net has recordings of stories from different elders, and if you're wanting to do that exercise where you want to, or Barbara Nolan's videos, if you want to sit and kind of try and go through it and write everything down that they're saying, and then try and translate it.
Or even just repeating is like another awesome. Just trying to say what they're saying, repeating it back as they say it. You taught me that one.
Yeah.
There's a word for that, isn't it? It's shadowing or something?
I forget the word
It's like
for it.
shadowing, mirroring,
I
something.
think it's mirroring or something, but
It's not necessarily considered effective in when you can, like, when you listen to other, but just for the practice of, like, hearing the sounds and getting them out and trying to decipher words and where words split and whatnot, I
yeah,
find it helpful.
yeah, and just getting that rhythm of
Mhm.
how a fluent speaker talks. And so if you're listening, you just play a story and you just try and say what they say. You might not um,
Be right.
you might not say everything exactly what they're saying because they're just going along really quickly, but just kind of go along with them and just kind of repeat what you can as the story goes along.
Yeah, because something I think people forget too is that, like, when you're speaking a new language, you have complete new muscles that you're gonna have to use. Woo! We got a delivery at the door. Do you want to get it, or do you want me to? Here. I know sometimes if people are shy and nervous to actually go out and speak in front of other people or have a conversation because they don't want to say things wrong, they don't want to mess it up, they don't want to sound wrong. This is a really good exercise to help practice working out those muscles in your mouth that you're not used to using, because a lot of the time we say it in our head and it sounds fine, but as soon as we try and say it, especially in front of someone and we're overthinking, you stumble and you mess up. And a good way of practicing that is getting those muscles practiced and worked out, and make it easier to get those sounds out. And also, you've been saying them for so long, it'll sound a little bit more, you'll feel a little bit more natural to say them, and it'll help you when you're feeling under pressure to answer, to less worry about pronunciation and more worry about the content of what you need to say back. So that's what I was going to say before that interruption. So I think we'll end it here because it's been a long one.
Yeah.
Concentrated one. Panego Anishinaabemowin from me, Namashko Gobwitkwe.
I'll say Gigo Anshitkan Kwejen Shnabemyan. So don't give up in trying to speak the language. So I think, yeah, Miigwech. Bamapi.
Bumblebee.
Pass my waist.